Hey, congratulations! You've just learned a new poi trick. Now what? Your mileage may vary on this, but personally, I have a 5-step process that I go through every time I learn a new poi trick, and I'm sharing it with you in this video. Drex here from DrexFactor Poi, sharing with you the love of poi spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain. And in this video, we're getting down to brass tacks as to what I think your process should be every time you pick up a new poi trick. But before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Fire Mecca, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Paraterra Light Toys, and Ultra Poi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all these awesome companies and the work they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links down in the description of this video. And special thanks to the non-business friend of the channel, Pekha Pekkonen. Thank you so very much for supporting my channel, my work, and my mission. It's such a rush picking up new tricks, and I think a lot of us are really focused on being able to keep up that rush for as long as we can. But I think that sometimes we overlook some ways in which we can really internalize the new tricks that we've learned and gain complete mastery over them in the process. But what does that process look like, and what are the benefits? I'm so glad you asked. Let's go ahead and dive in. Step 1, find all the variations. So this is not going to come as any shock to all the tech poi heads out there, but anytime you pick up a new trick, there are bound to be at least a couple variations that are also a good idea to explore. Does the trick involve spinning the poi in a particular direction? Well, you should probably learn the trick going the opposite direction as well. Does the trick involve one hand being placed above the other? Well, in that case, you should really learn the trick with the other hand on top as well. Does the trick involve performing something in a particular timing and direction mode? Well, you should also learn it in the other timing and direction modes too. Basically, this becomes a recipe for being able to expand all the things that you already know how to do and be able to get down a number of other things in the process too. And low-key, this is a process that can take anywhere from a few days to even a few years, depending upon the difficulty of the trick. Sometimes when you have opened up the kinesthetic awareness of how to make the poi and your hands move in one particular direction, getting the other direction down winds up being a lot harder than you would think. But I guarantee you, the effort is worth it. Number 2, achieve repetition control. So for me personally, the entire time that I've been spinning poi, I have had a policy in place. Namely that if I cannot perform 10 reps of a given trick back to back without making any mistakes, I haven't learned the trick yet. And while I think that's a useful heuristic, I also think it's only the beginning of the story. See, a lot of us, when we first learn a trick, we're not exactly unfamiliar with the idea of just doing rep after rep after rep. But what if instead we chose to do only 1 rep or only 3 reps? Is that something that we can conjure to mind just as easily? When we put together repetition control, what we're really doing is we're making it so that our brains are programmed to be able to do as many reps of the trick as we want to at the drop of a hat. And that makes all the difference between just drilling out on a trick forever and a day and then having to stop before moving to a different trick versus gaining full fluency over the trick and being able to switch back and forth at any possible point. The difference is full fluency. So once you're able to get in your 10 reps of a given trick, work on getting in just 5 reps, and 3 reps, and 1 rep, and then work your way back up from 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 once again. This may feel like it's kind of backsliding a little bit, like of course you could do the trick once when you first started working on it, but what this really teaches you to be able to do is to be able to pull out that trick whenever you want to and be able to end it whenever you want to, giving you full conscious control of the trick and thus full fluency with it as well. Number 3, volume control. So this is a thing that I've been harping on a lot recently, and something that I think is kind of an underexplored aspect of learning any new poi trick, which is to try to figure out what is the range within which you can still perform that trick, keeping it small as well as making it huge. So it came as something of a shock to me when I started going back and revisiting old beginner tricks, just how big a range of motion there was that was possible with them. Partially, I think this was just because when I learned these tricks, I was in such a hurry to move on to the next stuff. But in coming back and revisiting these, it's really incredible just how much potential there is for making different tricks read in different ways that we just never touch, because we don't stop to think about, hey, can I do this in a small space as well as a big space? There's so much to unlock here, and quite frankly, I think that being able to unlock all those possibilities also unlocks a lot of performance capabilities as well. And it does have to be said, not every trick has a huge range in volume for it. For example, almost all inverted poi tricks, as well as tangles and things like crossers, pretty much only work inside of a small space. But you'd be surprised how many poi tricks there are out there that have a very, very wide number of variations that you can explore with volume. I highly recommend you check them out. Number 4, level control. So you can think of this as being kind of a close neighbor of volume control. Whenever we open up the volume of a particular trick, we're also exploring multiple levels with it. But that doesn't mean that it's also not a good idea to explore performing a particular trick up high as well as down low. It's kind of a bad habit of poi spinners in general that we will start at a given level and never leave it. Whereas there's a lot more expressive capabilities to be found if we are willing to explore different tricks at different levels. Of course, this does mean that we have to get our bodies engaged a little bit more in doing so. But in the process of this, we also find just how much control we actually have of a given trick and what the potential is for us to be able to move around in space with it. I would venture to say that if performing a butterfly or a weave up around your head messes it up for you, I don't know that I would say that you've gained full fluency with it yet. So be willing to explore all these options with all of your different tricks. And of course, this winds up unlocking a lot of other skills too, because you can argue that playing around with behind the head and behind the back spaces constitute level changes as well. So get up high, get down low. You'll really be surprised by how much rewarding stuff there is to be found there. Number 5, map out transitions. So without a doubt, I think that this was the thing that I struggled with the most as I was learning tricks coming up in the poi world. My flow was really stilted for the longest time because I always treated different poi tricks as being these individual islands kind of locked off in space from each other, rather than thinking about how they could kind of move back and forth in different ways, where I could build highways between them. I would venture to say that I was spinning for probably a good 2 to 3 years before any of that started to make sense to me, and that's a shame. So how exactly do you map out transitions? Well, this is my approach, and your mileage may vary, but I find this to be pretty effective. Whenever I have a given poi trick, I try to think of there being 4 points that it goes through: top, bottom, and off to the sides, and look to see where the poi are in each of those positions and which other poi tricks they might overlap within them. So for example, in a butterfly, I have the moment when they are straight out to the side, I have the moment when they're both up top, I have the moment where they're crossed over each other, and I have the moment when they're both pointed down. All of these are possible transition spots. So for example, when the poi are out to the sides, I could say do a point isolation stall. I could turn that into a moment where I go into a flower. I can take the moment when they're crossed over each other and turn that into like a weave if I wanted to throw a pendulum in there. I can take the moment when they're both up top and switch into a flower, which I can also do when they're both on bottom, of course, as well. It gets a little bit more complicated when you deal with poi tricks that aren't just working inside of wall plane here, like say a 3-beat weave. Now, once again, we can look at all those points where the poi are aligned top and bottom, or out to the sides as possible transition points. But I also like to look at this moment where the hands are crossing over each other, because that is a good place to go into other poi tricks that involve having the hands crossed. There's a lot to explore here. be willing to look at all of those different points in the course of the move as potentially being a point where you can get to another move. The biggest challenge here is not to think of all of these individual tricks as their own unique islands, but to think of them as merely being snapshots that you pass through in the course of a much longer motion. It's a great challenge. And of course, once you map out several transitions, go ahead and drill those transitions. Practice doing, say, like 2 or 3 reps of a particular trick before you move on to the next trick, and back again. Make sure that you're really, really comfortable with those transitions and they feel just as integrated into your body as the tricks themselves do. And you're going to see so much improvement in your flow in the process. So I hope you found all those tips helpful. Do you have a different process that you go through when you learn new tricks? Let me know down in the comments if there are some steps that I skipped or things that you think that are important that I didn't cover. Please make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to help other people find this video and, of course, to help my channel grow. This video would not be possible without my amazing supporters on Patreon. In particular, I'd love to give a shout out to my Flow patrons who are listed on screen right now. Thank you all so much for supporting my channel, my work, and my mission. And I'm going to depart from my regularly scripted means of recruiting people to my Patreon because there has been a little bit of a change on the back end for me. Namely, I have gotten a little frustrated the past few years with the ways in which the discovery algorithms on YouTube and Instagram really limit the kinds of content that I can create. I have a lot of things that I want to say about Poi and flow arts, and not all of them are necessarily friendly for a quick little reel or TikTok video, and not all of them necessarily are a good fit for YouTube's search algorithm. So, lacking other options, what I'm going to start doing is creating some videos that feature content that I think is interesting, but that I don't think are a good fit for the discovery algorithms of social media. And I'm going to be posting those to my Patreon. So if you are interested in checking out my thoughts on a variety of different topics, you should go check out my Patreon and sign up. Access to all these things starts at the $5 level. The first video is up right now, and it talks about why I'm not so sure that thinking of teaching Poi in terms of tricks is always necessarily the best approach. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that, go check out my Patreon. I'll go ahead and leave a link to patreon.com/DrexFactor Poi down in the description, as well as up in the cards. Thank you in advance. And if you're interested in finding out how you can break out of the doldrums of being a beginner, I did a video on that a couple weeks ago that I'll go ahead and link to down in the description, as well as up here on screen. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to get out and flow today, and I'll see you with a new video real soon. Take care now. Peace.